1, 2, you hear the clock ticking, tick tock. You about to stop living, tick tock. I want you to remember me, tick tock. But the dead don't have no memory. I'm coming. Nobody can stop me, nobody can hold me, nobody control me. I'm coming. I'm here to do my thing. I'm here to bring the pain. I'm never ever gonna change. I'm coming.
All right, let's go. What is up, people? It is me. It is MVP. We're here for another episode of the most valuable podcast. And it's valuable because everything you're going to hear like from now for the next 45 minutes to an hour is going to be valuable. That's what we do here. My guests, I have LEFAOALII Dion Enari, based down in Brisbane, Australia. And I also have AGAPETOS, ALEAVA, who's also based down in Brisbane, Australia. And just the FYI, we're all from LEFAOALII.
And City.
Hi.
And just to add to that as well, both Dion and AGAPETOS are both PhD candidates researching Samoan culture, right? And welcome guys, first of all.
Thank you.
And it's important to know that because the topic that we're about to dive into, right? I mean, I posted a video on my Instagram. I did not expect for it to go the way like viral that it went. I actually deleted it because it was just getting a little bit out of hand. For those of you guys watching, you guys probably know the video I'm talking about. It is the video of Scribe, right? He's a legend in the hip hop game. One of the OGs in the game too, and he just got finished getting his beta done, and then he went to do a Siva Samoa, and this is where the online social media controversy came about. And so I've decided to bring in both Dion and AGAPETOS to discuss this issue, as you know, obviously this is what they do, right? And so let's get this conversation going. I'll start off by let me just add this in real quick before we get going. I posted the video because when I saw it, I just thought it was funny. Like, it was hilarious. Like, you know how us Polynesians, we just laugh at everything, and I saw it and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like the funniest thing I've ever seen. So I posted it. I didn't have intentions to post it to humiliate Scribe. I didn't even know it was Scribe until like the comments started rolling in, and I was like, oh, what the heck? So my intentions wasn't that. And as I started to see the comments come through, it was interesting to see how a lot of people laughed at it. There are a lot of serious people in there, like, this is makangad, like, this is not on. Then you had people that are like, why are you posting this? So as the comments were rolling through, it had me thinking, like, and started looking at different perspectives and stuff like that. And so now I'm interested in both of your perspectives. Who wants to go first? What are your thoughts on this video? We'll start off, right?
Of course. I love to go first. Thank you actually for the opportunity to actually discuss one of our mecenas online. It is a rare opportunity for me to actually weigh in on such a conversation, but I think I believe actually it's a conversation that we must have. Every time when controversy does come up, we need to discuss this because it's a conversation that it needs to be encouraged. So I actually saw the video because I'm not on TikTok, so my social media is very limited. And I actually thought it was inspiring. The reason why I felt that way was because if you see the Moana documentary back in 1926, and if you watch the whole documentary, you see, even though it's kind of like staged in some retrospectives of it, but the whole entire there is a section in there that shows a young man dancing, and he is absolutely he's clowning, and that's what Aiuli is all about, is about just clowning, but it's also about a warrior fending off not only bad spirits, but fending off people to not come near whoever is dancing. So when it comes to the tatau, when it comes to actually getting the tatau and finishing it, that is where the pinnacle of our, I guess, our excitement is, because we've actually completed a milestone that a lot of us cannot complete. And when I got my malu done, I want to do what he did, but I'm not a generation of a Silicon generation. I'm not the generation where TikTok happens or social media. I'm not the internet generation. So the way I danced, thank God there was no cameras. I would have been criticized for the way I was dancing.
I was about to ask, is there any footage?
Yeah, no, because I'm from a generation where there was mobile phones, but there was no cameras on mobile phones, so right. I was grateful in that area. So to me, when I saw Scribe and his Siva, I was inspired. I was actually cracking up laughing. I thought it was quite funny, absolutely funny. And that reminded me of the Moana, documentary. And I was like, this is what Aiuli is all about. Your Aiuli is a reflection of your environment. It's a reflection of your upbringing. It's your excitement. Whatever makes you move, move. Whatever makes you want to, whatever resonates with you, express it. What's wrong with self-expression? What's wrong with our people these days? What do you think, Dion, with the self-expression?
I just want to add on to that. It's really important to acknowledge when they do Siva Samoa, especially when it's in celebration events such as a samanga pe'a, completion of the pe'a, or a church event celebrating the erection of a new church, that the dancing is an extension of how you feel. So it's the genuine alofa, the genuine joy that you feel. You're expressing that with your movements. Meaning a lot of times that happens, it's not choreographed, and it's not choreographed because you don't know how your heart's going to feel. You don't know how, and it's also a navigation of space, meaning that when they Siva, not only do they Siva showing what they feel in their heart and in their soul, they're also paying homage, and they also have the help of their family, both their family physically here with us and those beyond the veil. So and it's really interesting, when I saw Scribe Siva, I really thought of, meaning the foundation remains the same, but the way we practice it will change. So, when I look at Scribe, if Scribe had learned a Siva Samoa by his grandfather or his father, and then he learned 5, 6, 7, 8, a whole choreographed piece, and then he did that after his samanga pe'a, that wouldn't be natural, because that's not a natural manifestation of what's going on in his heart, Right. So that's why when you see the movements, particularly when it's celebrating a village victory or samanga pe'a, they are not choreographed, and it's an expression of the soul, and it's an expression of the soul, so you don't know how it's going, and it's also an expression of the warmth that you feel from your family that are with you, that are aiuli next to you, and your family on the other side of the veil. Another important part that I want to make as well, in terms of Scribe Siva and getting the tatau, and I know AGAPETOS will double in on this as well, is when you receive the tatau, especially the pe'a and the malu, you are then considered fully dressed in the Samoan culture. Meaning, if Scribe chose to take off his lava and chose to kakala as well his undies, he has every right to do so, because in the Samoan culture, he is fully dressed. That's another. So it is at when someone with the pe'a dances, it is at their full discretion as to how much of the pe'a they show, and at their full discretion as to show it in all its glory. They have the full right and sovereignty to do so.
I actually agree with Dion as well, because pe'a is a very sacred thing to do. And to me personally, if there's no expression of self, then who are and then how do we know how they feel? It's an achievement. It's an achievement. It's like he or she is not only dancing for themselves, but they're dancing for their ainga, they're dancing for their village. And back in the heydays when Christianities came and colonized our people, the person with the bitter is like crying. If you listen to the words of the song that says, like afterwards you'll be like chuhuing and dancing in that. And that's where the essence of the aiuli and the Siva comes from. Because when you're lying there, it's a matter of life and death. Your life is actually on the line, and your life is in the hands of the tufunga, tatatau. So he has a duty of care to you, and he has a duty of care not only to your body, but to your life. And a lot of our brothers and sisters did not make that journey. They did not make it. Some of them were incomplete. They didn't finish their bitter. They decided, no, it's enough. Others ended their bitter in death, So to end it in such a way and to come out of it and to have your bitter bitter into the Tatau family, that's a massive achievement, And to be criticized by that it's unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate. And to me personally, like for example, like what I said earlier, when my dad passed away, I had a different, like my sisters and I had a different way of doing ka'inga sua and kali sua, but my cousins from Sydney had a different way to my cousins in Melbourne. So we had to do a compromise, and we had a nice uniform way of doing it, because we understood that there is no right or wrong in Samoa. There is no right or wrong on how we feel. There is no right or wrong in our Siva Samoa. And to me personally, the reason I celebrated Scribe's way of dancing, because it's a reflection of his environment. It's a reflection of what he sees. It's a reflection of what he feels. It was a reflection of what he learned. How do we know that he wasn't raised in a strong Samoa family? I don't know him. How do I, like, who are we to judge him of how much he knows about Samoa? Who are we to judge him whether he knows how to say talofa or talofa? Like, who are we? That's his language, And to me personally, we should allow for him to have that language. Like, why is it was easy for us to go out and buy his CDs when he came out? Why was it easy for us to go and ask him for money when we needed money? Why is it easy for us to celebrate him when he won awards? Why was it easy for us to actually look at him and talk about him and praise him when he was that musician? But where was the praise when he was going through hard times? Where were we when he was facing his own demons? Where were we when he needed the help? And now all of a sudden he's taken a different direction in life, decided to get the bitter, and went harder expressing himself in the way that he knows best, the language that he knows best in his heart. And now we're throwing him under the bus. Like, who are we to do that? Like, to me personally, who are we to do that? And that's the one thing that it really makes my blood cringe at times, but it's unfortunate. It's such an unfortunate circumstances that we're in right now. And I believe we need to be better. We need to be better with our words, better with our relationships, better with the way we communicate. And it starts with us. It starts with here.
Right. I 100% agree with that, with everything both of you guys have been saying. And I think that was like my thing as well, because as the post was, kept getting more attention and all these comments started coming through, there are people that reached out to me in my DMs and were like trying to offer a different perspective. Because to me it wasn't that deep, like, and it was so easy for us to miss that part that both of you were talking about, that he actually went through the journey, and we just went straight to the dancing part. And I was guilty of that too. I owned up to my mistake. Okay, that's my bad. And I know I've seen people that I love go through that journey and how difficult it was. And I think we focused too much on the wrong thing. And there were comments that were like, well, he actually completed the journey. Okay, so but let me play devil's advocate a little bit here, just because I know that there are people that commented, because there were more people that were laughing than there were trying to understand Scribe's situation, right? And I'm here trying to educate myself by the both of you and learn more about this, so that when it happens again moving forward, I can be a better example into how to deal with these kinds of things. I think the outrage mostly, okay, so TikTok dance. I know you touched on a little bit with the environment and stuff like that. Would there be let's say more people they seen Scribe do this, and then they start, let's just say, copying, and now we start moving into, now we see that situation become, those types of moves. Would there be, obviously it's expression, but what would you guys say to that?
So there's a movement
whatever.
So what we're implying is that using the movements of TikTok and hip hop as aiuli.
Right.
Is that what you're implying?
Yeah.
Okay. So like for example, if you look at, let's say, if you look at wedding videos, all right. So if you look at wedding videos, you look at some birthdays when there's people doing the aiuli, you'll see that some of them do like TikToks and hip hop and R&B dance moves along the way with it. So it's always been there. Mm-hmm. The only difference is the people who are doing it are not as famous as Scribe. Scribe has a name. He has a presence in the public eye. Whereas the people who are actually continuously doing this, what Scribe is doing, are not seen because they're unknown to the public eye. The other thing is you also need to look at, say, the Polyfest. If you look at the whakaopaki and some of their whakaopaki moves, there is an element of hip hop and R&B in there. That there's an element of other cultures in there, embedded in there, because there is a shift in the way we see, like in our dancing. So if you compare, like, say, a Siva Samoa, a Taupo Siva Samoa from back in the heydays, you'll see that there's a specific Siva for a chief's daughter. And the chief's daughter stands on a special mat that's made for her. And then the men are around her dancing, are singing, just sitting down singing, and she's the only one that's dancing. And she's sitting, she's down, and she has a special mat that she stands on. The only reason I know this is because there's some researchers out, and there's also photos, and I would like analyzing the photos and as well as documentaries. So I've been analyzing those. And then you compare that moving forward to when I got taught by Salamasina Malietoa, so Malietoa's sister, before she passed away in Papota. The way I was taught was totally different. But it was much more of a sense where it was more from her perspective of Siva Samoa. And the way I dance now is no longer like you hardly ever see it now, because the next generation has got their own way of expressing their Siva Samoa and their aiuli. So with me, I'm guilty of aiuliing with a hip hop move. Sometimes I twerk. So I'll be aiuliing at the back and I'm like twerking, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm like, I'm doing this all the time, and that's part of aiuli. I remember one time we had a fundraiser. No, so it was a celebration of our whakasa here in Brisbane. And there was a competition, like, manaya and all that, and then a taupo. And one of the guys, I swear to you, he was aiuliing hard out, like being like like all over the place, throwing things around, because that's what aiuli is. You throw things around, you climb the walls, you climb the trees, and he put holes in the wall. And one of the elder reverends stood up and said, that is one of the best aiuli I've ever seen. The best aiuli I've ever seen. I've seen chairs broken. And then he turned around and he said to the secretary of Ifakasa and said to him, make sure you pay for the broken walls and pay for the broken chairs. And he goes, that aiuli is my number one aiuli. And that's what aiuli is for. If you see documentaries that was done in the 30s, the 60s, and the 70s, moving in the revolution of our Siva Samoa, you were bound to see at least one or two aiulis climbing a coconut tree in the 80s. Because I actually watch a lot of those old footage of Siva Samoa as well, and because I'm always looking at the revolution of our culture, because I'm really interested in it, and I'm also looking at how the malu has actually changed over the years as well. And if you actually see it, you see that a lot, and then a lot of the women who are aiuli, you see them with like leaves, and they're like sussing, like they're like full on smacking the ground, smacking each other, and that's part of it, because that's the environment. And if you actually compare Samoa now to say New Zealand or Brisbane or here in Australia, you see that it is the same culture. But it's actually the same. So to me personally, there's no differences between what Scribe has done to someone as typical as me who has a name, who has no name, because I do exactly the same thing. I don't even know how to dance TikTok, but I know how to whip a nene. All right, I can whip a nene. I've been whipping a nene as a aiuli in a lot of our fundraisers.
Yeah.
But that's my 5 cents. But that's what I think. So yeah.
Just to jump on with Agapetos and just to add on to that in terms of the environment, the time plays a big role. So you know, we can already, and catering to the audience. So if you were to look at, you know, as me and Agapetos, you know, being culture nerds have seen, the Siva Samoa in the early 1900s compared to now, many of the people now would not be able to watch and view it pleasurably, the Siva Samoa that was done in the early 1900s, because our ears are not toned, our ears are not in tune with the tone that was set in there, and our eyes are not in tune with that environment. So a lot of, and it's really interesting because, you know, when a lot of people talk about, let's go back to the roots, let's go back to, you know, how it's done back in the day, you wouldn't like how it was done back in the day because your eyes are not used to it. Even if you know, I'm not talking about Siva Samoa in the 1900s, I'm talking Siva Samoa in the 1960s. Even many, if you go back and especially watch the Samoan Teachers Training College and how they first, when they first went to New Zealand in the 1960s, the 1970s, their way of Siva and their way of is totally different to now. When you look at the evolution of Siva Samoa now, the beats are faster, there's more floor changes, there's more of a Hawaiian influence. And that's part of that has to do with the environment they live in and how much faster the world we live in is now. And also all the outside influences of their lived reality. So when you look at Siva Samoa that's taught in Australia, New Zealand, and America, it would not be slow and it would not be, you know, speaking of village life, because they didn't live in the village life. The life that they live is TikTok and you know, and drawing on hip hop, and that, you know, planting taro in the plantation is not a lived experience for a lot of Samoans that were born and raised on the outside. Therefore, when people Siva Nkwa, they wouldn't be able, there's a bit of a misconnection, because those that Siva Nkwa now, they're speaking of their lived experience through dance, their lived experience, you know, weaving the mats in the, you know, in the Mauta Fale, doing all the Gomitsi Fafinge things. That's their lived experience. So then when you come here, when you come to Brisbane and, you know, Los Angeles and Auckland, a lot of the Siva Samoa is an identity marker. You know, I live in this big crazy world, but I'm proud to be Samoan, and you know, we know how to do all these fancy floor changes and level changes now. So yeah, a lot of the dance is a reflection of the environment that the dancers live in.
Yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that. And I think that like what both of you are sharing is just like, I'm like, you know, it's so dope, because I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't even like have even considered this information, you know. Why do you think, because going back to the post, there are more people, I would say, that couldn't, I guess to them they saw it as disrespectful. Why do you think the generation now views it like that? Like, is it something that they were taught, or is it something that they've seen that, like, when they see, like, because like to my eyes was like, I've never seen this before. So I know a lot of people are the same. Like, I've never, like, what the heck is this? So what has taught this generation? Because majority of the people who commented were like, what the hell is this? You know, what has taught them to view it as disrespectful? Is it something that's been passed on from another generation? Is we're just not educated enough? We're not willing to do the work and to do the research? Why do you think that is?
Well, from my experience as the only reason why I'm so open-minded to it is because I'm actually a Fafe'ao's daughter. You know, I've been in Ifakasa for like over 30 years. And I've seen so many different types of Aiuli and Siva Samoa and Fa Samoa all my life. So I like what Dion mentioned this in one of the symposiums that he chaired in, and he said that Fa Samoa is not only to be spoken but to be practiced. So I've been practicing my Fa Samoa since I was growing up, like since I was a kid. Even though I was born in Samoa, but I was raised in Fiji, mostly in Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia. But my parents made sure that I never lost that. So to me personally, like I would not have an answer on behalf of those who actually criticize it, because I don't understand the world from their point of view. Because the world I live in is through my own culture, through my own experience as a Samoan woman. Like, and then when I got my malu done, my perspective of life changed as well. My responsibilities have changed. You know, my way of talking and meeting other people, especially in public, is totally different. So when I'm with my friends, I've got a different way of talking to them. But I'm also very aware of what it's like to wear the malu. I'm also very aware of the critics behind the malu, like who, and I'm also now aware that my own critics have recently received their own malu, and now understand what position I'm in. So yeah, even when I Siva Samoa, like people thought it was easy to Siva Samoa, or like as a whawhiao's daughter, to always do the te kaukaua, or always balu the other, because we're the only ones, my sister and I were the only ones who balu the other, until my dad changed that and said every single girl in the church are going to take turns at baluing the other. And from then on in, it alleviated that bit of a pressure off me and my sisters. So every time we had the other, every single girl had the chance behind the cover, you know, kind of thing. So to me, I live my Fa Samoa. I breathe my Fa Samoa. I understand my perspective of Fa Samoa, but unfortunately, I don't understand it from their perspective. Could it be a lack of understanding in our culture? Could it be the fact that their stance on Fa Samoa is this is how it's done and it should never have changed? Or could it be the fact that they can't understand how the paradigm shifts within our culture? I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure, hopefully, if we do put the question out there, hopefully those critics will actually come out and share their perspective on it. But to me personally, unfortunately, I don't see it from that point of view.
I can speak into why they talk the way, why they talk like that, because I did my PhD on New Zealand-born Samoans in Australia and their perceptions of the Fa Samoa, and this very topic came out quite frequently within the study. So a lot of them speak like this, and a lot of them view it like this because it's so sacred. So it's so sacred to them that they believe it should never be changed, and it's static, and that anything outside of what they were taught is wrong. So that in a nutshell brings out all these different dialogue of people being very critical. On the flip side, some criticism is good. Yeah, it keeps us honest. So you know, it's really important to acknowledge that, you know, we need to have these discussions. If people dislike, you know, if people dislike one thing that you're doing culturally or another, there needs to be that open forum to dialogue and to share why and how, and for people to share, and that way we're able to grow forward in terms of how the culture is practiced and how the culture will survive into the future.
I love that about what you just said about it's very sacred. You know, I love that sacredness about it. And I remember there was one girl, I grew up, like I watched her grow, and she went and got the sua. And the way we were taught, like we only did this just to keep it so uniform. So she'll put the envelope down, take 3 steps back, turn around and walk off. What had happened was somebody must have taken a video of it and posted online, and then wrote or said something very negative about it. And the girl who was actually in the video was so angry. So I was very quick to go online and said to her, don't see this as a negative, but see this as a positive, because you've just taught somebody something new about our culture they did not know about. you know. So be grateful that you have become a mentor to somebody. You've taught somebody something new about our culture. You've taught someone something that is refreshing to them. Whether they criticize you in a good way or a bad way, embrace that change, you know, and see it as a positive. So I like how, but I think from her, now I understand it from her perspective, the girl who took the video, because she must have seen her Samoa as a very sacred thing.
Right.
But I looked at it and I just went around and I said, it's, you know, it's a learning thing for us,
Yeah.
you know, and we're learning.
Yeah. And I just want to jump in on this as well, is everyone has a duty and a responsibility to learn our culture and our language, and you're gonna stuff up. Man, I've been stuffing up for years. Like, you know, like that's all part of it. You cannot know, there's no other way you can learn the Fa Samoa than by participating in the Fa Samoa. It is there, you know, it doesn't work, you know, by you going and doing online Samoan language courses and reading some Samoa books, yet you don't go and go hua your family. It doesn't work like that. You're not going to learn. It's ineffective. The best way that you learn Fa Samoa is by getting in there, serving your parents, your grandparents, the aunties and uncles, listening in on their conversations. Only that way will you learn the essence of Fa Samoa. And from that, you will learn effective, everything will make sense. It's really important to make that point clear, that that's the only way that you can learn the essence, the heart of Fa Samoa, just by getting in there and doing it and knowing you're going to make mistakes. Man, we could sit here all day about all the mistakes that I've made, but then with practice makes perfect. You know, I will never forget the first speech that I said in Samoan. My goodness, compared to the ones that I do now, massive. You know, you know, and that's all part of it. It's all a learning, participating, getting in there, you know, serving with your hands. Through serving with your hands and your feet on the ground, then that's how you gain all the knowledge and the wisdom to move forward with the culture.
And I love that about Dion. And I always brag about Dion all the time. I'm not bragging about him because I like him or I love him. I just brag about him because he set an example. No. So when I first met Dion, right, he goes, yeah, I'm Samoan. And I started speaking Samoan. The dude was like, and I'm like, so what really made me so proud of Dion was like, instead of, you know, wallowing on the fact that he lacked the Fa Samoa, he actually did turn his weakness into a strength through his PhD. You know, and that's why I use him as an example every time I talk about Fa Samoa. And I turn around, I was like, well, I know a kid who didn't know how to speak Samoan to me, but now we can actually hold a conversation in Samoan. Knowing he went and lived in Samoa, had his lived experience in Samoa, worked in Samoa, came back and did a PhD. So now when I talk to my students, and like especially my Samoan like colleagues and all that, I was like, he's one of my prime examples. You know, I can finally enjoy having a Fa Samoa conversation with this kid without even speaking like much English, you know. So this is the most English we've actually spoken.
Oh, thanks, you the best.
Yeah, no, that's so dope. I love that too, and I think that should be one of the lessons we take from this conversation too. Is, you know, we don't know as much as we think we do, and you know the only way to actually really test how much we do know is by getting involved. And like that's something I've been trying to do too. Like I did join an online Samoan thing, and I was trying to whaakingo all the stuff that I was learning in the class in the classes. You know, I started speaking to my parents more in Samoan. I started you know, asking them if, like, you know, because today, you know, growing up, I guess we don't see much of that. And then when you go to Samoa and then you see how the kids treat their parents and would do everything for them, we don't see that much over here. Are you guys worried that the future generation of Fa Samoa, do you feel like it's kind of like oh, what's the word? Like dying? Do you guys see that? Because you're both more involved in this thing than I am. From your perspective, do you feel like it's like, because like our parents can speak fluent Samoan, they're probably their oldest two kids can speak fluent Samoan, and then it starts going down to the younger kids and they can speak a little bit of Samoan, and then it gets to the other kids and they can understand it but they can't speak it, and then you get to the younger kids, they just completely don't know what you're saying. Does that make sense, my question?
Mhm.
That's all my research
Yeah, that's
field as
Dion.
well.
All right, good,
That's
Dion.
Agapetos, you answer first.
All right, cool. So I remember there's a researcher who actually wrote his thesis, and he said that Samoa won't last at all. Samoa will not last. I can't remember who the researcher is, and my dad used to always use him and gave him as
Was
an
it a
example.
Palangi or?
I think so. It was a Palangi. And he wrote saying that Samoa would be dying in a couple of
I think
hundred
I've
years.
seen that too, actually.
Yeah. So,
Oh.
and then what really cracks me up is we always get this question. It's like, are we losing our Samoa? Are we losing our language? Are we losing our culture? The answer is no, we're not. We're just evolving with time. We're evolving with the changes that we are going through right now. We're rolling with the flow. We're rolling with the waves, and we're going with the flow. And the reason why we do that is because our ancestors accepted beachcombers and their religion back in 1700s, like late 1700s, early 1800s, right? And that was them rolling with the changes that's sweeping through. And that was Nafanua's prophecy, that there is a change coming. You need to accept the change that's coming. So within the 1830s, when the missionaries came in, that was our ancestors rolling with the tides, surfing the waves, hitting that hang 10 kind of thing. And then as the years, and then migration came through. So when the white people came through with their migration, we were like experts at it. I was like, nah, we've been a Tonga, Fiji, we've got this. But we haven't, what we didn't realize was that Samoans were actually traveling on sea boats, on whale boats back in the 1700s and 1800s. So every time when they come through, some of our Samoans would jump on it, and then they'll go and travel through Australia, New Zealand, and also England, and then come back, and they come back with new knowledge. So we have been rolling with the changes. So now we're in a generation where we're going through changes, like COVID-19 happened. That was a big change to us. Like, instead of seeing our family face to face now, like when Dion and Yakoba wrote about digital bar, Matapo wrote about like the digital bar and how we've now shifted our culture from face to face, traveling over there and looking at each other and seeing and smelling each other, to the digital bar, online Zoom. We're watching our family, like we're losing, every time we lose our family, we say goodbye online now, and that is us rolling with the changes. So are we going to lose our Samoa? The answer is no. We will never lose our Samoa, because we will never lose our tatau, our stories. We will never lose our Samoa, because even though what you said earlier, Ngasiata, the first 3 kids are fluent in Samoa and then the others lose off. Yeah, that's like mine. I've got eight siblings. The first 5 of us are really good at it. The last 3, yeah, never mind. Kind of thing. It's like, even Dion's Samoa has gone like to them, kind of thing. It's like, oh, but it's okay. Like, but when we do have our Samoa, like when we do get together and we speak, you can hear, like, even my nieces and nephew really learning how to speak Samoa. And the first language that we learned when we were growing up is Samoa. My dad has always said this: the teacher's time with my children is between 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. My time with my children is after 3 p.m. and before 9 a.m. And then I've got my children in the weekend. That's where my Samoa happens. So white teachers teach my children how to speak English. My job is to teach my children how to speak Samoan. So that's why we've never lost the language. Like, we were hardcore Samoa in the house all day, every day. So that's why I'm really fluent in both. I understand the Matai language and the common Samoa, because but to me personally, we will never lose it. The reason why we don't lose it either is because we're in a generation of social media. So we're in that silicon generation, that social media, the internet generation. And through the internet, we can actually still continue to share our knowledge, share our perspective of Samoa, share our stories. And filmmakers, like I am one of the I'm a filmmaker. So we're archery people. But now the extension of our archery now is through moving images such as documentary making, and sharing our stories. And that's continuously going, and it will always be on internet, and we will never lose it. So to me personally, we will never lose it, regardless of what people say. We will never lose our language, and we will never lose our Samoa. The only thing that we'll probably be losing is our marbles when these things come up. As soon as Scribe does that, all gone.
I actually agree with that. I just asked the question because I just know that this is something that's on like people's minds. So I'm like trying to think how others would think so that we could get the right information to them. But I actually agree with you 100%. I don't think we will. What about you, Dion? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a saying on the Samoana documentary, if anyone gets to watch it, at the end of the documentary, it says, only when the last Samoan in the world dies should the Samoa die too. And Isaoa, there's so much here, when you research this day in, day out. I'll revert to the language. So there's a Samoan researcher, Dr. Salaina Oloa Wilson from Auckland University of Technology, and her research looks at Samoan language conservation. And one of her big findings was the Samoan language can fully be wiped out in 3 generations, what you were talking about. So you have your parents come from Samoa, speaking fluent Samoan, then the children can only understand and respond a little bit, then by their children, they don't have enough to pass on. So it's really important that we are aware of that. But in terms of, our cultural foundations, it is so rock solid. You only have to look at the amount of NRL players that are willing to play for Toa Samoa for $0. You only have to look at all these Samoan people that are in the public spotlight, whether they're dancers, whether they're wrestlers, whether they're actors, whether they're singers, and they're representing and putting the Samoan flag first and foremost. So that pride will carry us through. The pride of Samoans who were born and raised in America and Australia will always be there, irrespective of where they were born and how many generations they've lived in the diasporic country, in the new country. So we just need to be wary, to ensure, that we, faola le kakoa nguma le kako ngangana I kukong le fale, ole aonga mua ole fale. So the house is the first school for ways. So it's important that we, Dr. Salaina Oloa Wilson's research also says this, the house will be the deciding factor, yay or nay, as to where, whether the culture will survive. So I really believe it's our duty to ensure that we play our part in the home and in the wider communities, whether it's our Samoan churches or the universities or sports, that we're deliberate, that we make sure we're making a deliberate, conscious effort. I know it's easier for everyone to speak English instead of Samoan in our generation, our day and age. I know that personally, but fight. As long as you're trying, because the importance of keeping the mea sina alive and the anga nu'u and the ngangana, then we'll be in good hands, and that's the attitude a lot of people have to have.
Yeah, I remember because I was one of those kids who could only understand and not really speak, and then until my parents sent me on a permanent vacation that I had no idea was a permanent vacation to Samoa. Right, I thought I was there for a holiday. All of a sudden, then rolling me in school, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" And so I decided to just, all right, let's go. I couldn't speak a lick of Samoan.
How many years were you there for again, Urs?
2. I think just over 2. I think it was just over 2. And my first year, I was ingofali, so I got to really experience the mamanga life. I was going back and forth, doing all that stuff. Doing the umu, doing the saka. Like I really got into the whole Samoan culture that I never thought I'd be able to like live like that, you know? And I loved it. It was like one of the best times of my life, you know? And I learned Samoan because I had no choice. If I wanted to conversate with people, no one could, like, you know, some of them could speak English and some of them could, you know, make out some words, but for the most part, I'm like, if I want to like talk to people, I need to learn how to speak Samoan. So I basically learned just by listening all the time. And but then not only just listening, but listening with a purpose. Like, all right, let me get that word down. And you know, because we, even like kids today, we hear our parents speak Samoan all the time, but it never sinks in. We're just like, oh yeah, we don't have the, you know, purpose of like wanting to actually learn how to speak it until you're forced to, which was my situation. And so that's when my love for like Samoa stuff really began. And then I moved back here, and then all my years were here, and then it started to like die out a little bit. And then now I'm like really starting to pick it up because I'm really, really interested once again in all of this. And so like I just appreciate the work that both of you guys do, because you know, like I've known Dion all the time, like for ages. He's been doing this kind of stuff, but I've never actually like sat down to have a proper conversation with him. Every time I see him, we're like doing like other stupid stuff. But now, like I've actually like listening to properly now, I'm like, holy crap! Like, so my cousin this whole time is like got all this stuff unlocked. And so I really appreciate the knowledge that both of you are bringing, because it's really educating for me, and I know it's going to be educating for a lot of people. And since it's a hot topic right now, people will want to listen in, because it's something that's going on right now. So I do want to thank you both for your time and your perspective. I do have one more question though, because I feel like we could be here like all night talking about this, and who knows, maybe we end up doing a part 2, because you know someone might lose their marbles over this video. And so one of the questions that did come through was about people who aren't Samoan that go and get the better. And
that's what her PhD is on, non-Samoans.
Okay, this is perfect then. This is perfect then, because, and it's actually a question that I always see all the time. Like I feel like I've seen it 5 years ago. We're in 2021. I see this question again. I can see in the future in 2032 that this is still going to be a question. Can we get like just a spot on like what's with this situation? Is it because people always lose their minds about it, and then arguments all the time online. What's your, since this is your what you're into and what you
all
do?
Right, so
what's your take on this?
All right, so my research is, I originally started my research into the Samoan model when I was doing my master's, and I was looking at from a perspective of how do I turn my master's into a PhD. So I looked at the stories of women in Brisbane and their perspective of the model. But out of that research, I found out there was a tafunga by the name of Angela Suape Bolson. She's actually white American, so she's not Samoan, but she was the first tafunga tatatau female too. So she lives in San Diego. And then through her, I started looking into the non-Samoan women and their tatau. And then I found out through my research that there's also whawhawhine with the manu. So there's a few in Auckland, and I just finished interviewing one in New York. So am I their perspective of it? Because I've done some prelim interviews with some of the women, and their perspective is very simple, and it's the same one as us as Samoan women, is that it's about representation of culture, you know. And the reason why some of the women took on that journey of pain is to be there for their husbands. So their husbands decide to get the better, and their husbands ask them, will you stand by me when I get mine? And their answer was always going to be a yes. So they thought they're going to be there emotionally and hold their hand, go through it. But when they realize that if their husbands are going and taking the pain, they want to be in there with sharing that pain with the husband, you know. And and it's about also carrying on. It's about carrying on the husband's family's legacy. It's representing their children. It's giving their children the rite of passage to say, you can either get our traditional, or the traditional Samoan tattoo, which is your dad's side or your mom's side, or you can get the traditional tattoos from my side or the other respective partner's side. So one of the ladies I actually interviewed, her name is Parehuia, and she took hers along with her husband. And it was more to do with representation and being there for her sons and giving her sons the opportunity to have a choice between a Māori tattoo or a Samoan tattoo. You know, they can get and to celebrate themselves, not only as Māoris, but also as Samoans. With the whawhawhine I actually interviewed, and this is where it gets really, really fascinating, is like the whawhawhine I actually who got her tattoo done, she didn't get it through a tufunga tatatau. And yet a lot of us are attacking our tufunga tatatau. Because if you actually sit down and talk to a tufunga tatatau, you'll realize that they actually share something about the tatau and the protocols of the tatau that nobody else, that they don't even share much of everybody else. And and the taboo is right there. And it clearly tells you that they can't do it to whawhawhine because biologically they're men. But some of our whawhawhine are now turning to non-traditional Samoan tattooists to do their tatau. So it's actually palangis that are doing the tataus on whawhawhine. So that's something that came out of the research. But to me personally, their journey is exactly the same as ours. You know, as exactly the same as mine or similar to mine. It's about identity. It's about culture. It's about representing our families. It's about representing our legacy. It's about preservation of culture. It is about a gatekeeper of who we are as women. It's about celebration of women as well. You know, the empowerment of women. It is about like giving us a voice, giving us a space to actually share our stories. And what really makes me sad is the fact that we as Samoans are so quick, you know, to embrace each other when it comes to things that need to be celebrating. Like, you know, oh, cool, you got a malu. Oh, cool, you got a bit. Cool, you got this. But as soon as that person like turns their back, it's like, oh, you know, we start saying stuff about them. You know, don't smile at them with a fake smile, you know, with the Judas smile.
Plenty of
but
those
be genuine.
going around.
Yeah, but be genuine. If you don't like them getting the malu done, tell them.
Right.
It's best that that comes out of your mouth into their face than for them to hear it behind their back. But to me personally, I see it as a celebration, an extension of who we are as Samoans. I see it as pride that people who from non-Samoan backgrounds are willing to go through the pain to represent Samoa wherever they go. The greatest thing about getting a malu and a pea, if you actually read Sunny Nathanielu, Dr. Sunny, Nathaniel's on paper, he mentions one of the Balangi guys in there who with a pea, and how his personality changed because he was such a ulabali before he got it done. But as soon as he got his pea done, he shows it. And then the matais around him goes, you got a pea now. And then all of a sudden, he's no longer that ulabali guy, but he's much more a respectful guy. Like he's changed his attitude and his perspective, you know. And that's also, if you see other researchers that also done that, who looked at the pea as well, like David Tavita, Reverend Dr. Tavita Maliko did that as well. He mentioned that in his research. He also mentioned whawhawhine of the malu, but it wasn't in the scope of his research. So I picked that up. Albert Wendt also spoke about non-Samoans getting the pea done or the malu done. They see the changes in people, especially non-Samoan people. They see the changes in personalities. And on top of that, you see the Samoa oozing out of them, you know, because their mannerism changed, the way they talk changed, the way they see us has changed. And it's a beautiful change. And to me personally, it's like, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I know I'm going to get attacked by this, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Wait until the documentary comes out. Then you'll all be like fire and ice on me, and I'll be like, that's okay. Khaleesi can handle this. Just keep Jon Snow out of this. So keep my nephew out of this. This is fine. No,
Oh.
but yeah. But you know, to be honest, it's like it's us, you know, like what you know, taking us back to the question that we had earlier, like, are we going to lose our Samoa? No, we're not.
Right.
You know, it is true that we might lose the language after 2 or 3 generations down, but if you go back home to Samoa, live there for 2 years, come back like Dion and Jerome, you know, all is gravy. No, just kidding. You know, how many dudes you know go wrong like this? You know, how many dudes you know flow like this?
No pun intended.
So
you know, check your mic, man.
Sis, I have a question for you. So then what would you say to those that turn around and say, you know, you have no blood ties to this art form and you have no whakapapa to this art form, therefore you shouldn't take on the and the malu. What exactly would you say to them? Yeah, because there's a lot of them.
And also to just to add to that question, people just getting it for fashion or just because it looks cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I will for those who are actually getting it for fashion, that's their own predicament. That's back on them.
Right.
Like that's their decision. If that's a decision that they made. Oh, and I really love your question because I asked that question in my master's. It's like, what do you, and I asked a Tufunga's wife, and she said, there's different types of bitters out there. There's a bit of Siva, there's a bit of, what do you call it? There's a show off, like, you know, one of those fear kamamafa kind of bitter.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit of tautua. You know, that's what they said. They go, there's always that kind of thing.
Bitter.
So for the serving bitter is the one that matters the most. Because they get their bitter and they serve serve a purpose, you know, like just like one of Dion's published paper that came out, Olealo le pule le tautua. Yeah, so that's yeah. So the second one is bitter siva. So some people just get their bitter just for dancing purposes, entertainment, you know, to show, you know, but
this is
you
so
know, that's
cool.
also And then the third one is fashionable. It's just for fashion. You know, I can do it. I did it. So here we go. And then you see the mini skirt that I was like, you might as well just walk out naked, girl. Boy, you might as well just, you know, it's fine. But to me personally, the way I see those who actually just wear it for fashion and just show it off, that's actually part of the Malu culture. That's part of the Tatau culture. The only reason why it changed is because, like what Dion said, as soon as you're tattooed, you're clothed. You know, you're fully clothed. You're no longer naked. But when the missionaries came in and saw the way the culture is, what they did was like, so there is a research, I think it's by Malaysia.
Yes. Professor Malama Malaysia.
That's the one, Malaysia. When in one of his research, I think one of their research, it's he, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he mentioned that I think it's his research where he says that as soon as the missionaries came in, the women's role changed, and their role changed to reflect the middle class white women in England. And the men's role changed to reflect the middle class or working class in England. So that's why we are the way we are now. But our way was never like this. We were so chilled. We were very chilled.
Definitely jump on that. Like you even look at the missionary diaries. So when a lot of the first missionaries came to Samoa, they were very disgusted that they were greeted by female chiefs because where they came from, women weren't allowed to talk, and the fact and you know, and women did not have the same rights that women had in Samoa. So then by the Christian missionaries coming, they, you know, you look at a lot of the missionary diaries, a lot of them speak of how dare this society, you know, Samoa have female chiefs, how dare they hide how dare they hold females in such a high regard, because that is so against what we do. And so then, and it's funny when you look at the Fat Samoa, particularly Fat Samoa before the arrival of Christian missionaries, women had a sacred role of being sacred transmitters of knowledge. And then from the arrival of Christianity, then came the man was the head of the family, and then the woman was subservient. but those were introduced concepts. That only came from the missionaries. Before that, we had Nafanua. We can go on. We had Salamasina. We had, the women held a very important role in Samoan society because they were sacred knowledge transmitters and they were holders and givers of birth. So because they had that power, they were so revered in Samoan society. And then with the arrival of Christianity, that's when a lot of the values had changed.
Yeah, it's true. And all our roles also flipped. So there was always a season of planting and then the season of sowing. So a lot of time after they plant, the Samoans used to chill. The Samoans used to surf. They were surfers,
right.
Yeah, they used to go and while they're planting, so they won't live off the land, they will live off the sea. So once the harvesting is done, then they live off the land. So it was always a back and forth kind of thing. But unfortunately for our ancestors, and then again, what I said earlier, they were rolling with the changes that was coming through. There was always that rolling of changes. Right. So to me, for those who actually took malu as a fashion, it's actually part of it, unfortunately. And some people say, no, it should be sacred, but that's a colonizer way of saying it. We're so colonized, we need to decolonize our thinking. So people used to show off their malu, their pita. And the only reason why you knew that they were showing it off is because, one, you'll see photos of it. Two, if you read the diaries of maritime diaries of people exploring Samoa, they actually have notes in there that specifically say people with blue or green ink on their bodies that look like clothing or leggings. It's because Samoans were continuously showing off their tattoos. It was never hidden.
Yeah.
The reason why it's hidden is because the colonizations came because of colonization. Yeah. So that's why I agree with all three segments, all three ideas of dancing only, the tautua as well as showing off. So that's my my take on it is I accept all three. I don't have a problem with all three of them. Sorry, I forgot the other question. What was the other question? I was so into this.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. I think there was another section of the question that I was supposed to answer. I can't remember what it was.
It was Dion's one.
I think it was Dion's one.
What would you say? What would you say to those that say, it shouldn't be given to non-Samoans and
my thing is to them is, one, do you have a pita or malu? Yes or no? If yes, good. Then go and embrace your own culture. It's good to see that people who from non-Samoan indigenous background embracing our culture. Because if you compare us Samoans to say here at First Nations, our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, nobody's embracing that. We do acknowledgement country. Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
When you go to Samoa, exactly. When you go to Samoa and you go to a village goes and visits another village. A whole entire other is prepared. It's physical. We're physically in there welcoming our visitors into our houses, into our homes, into our villages. Even here in Brisbane, we do that. We perform the cover ceremony. We perform a nicer version of Bo'ula, kind of thing. We have entertainments. We entertain our guests. We welcome them with food and feast and that. We practice our culture. We embrace our culture. We do our welcome our country by doing all that. But compare here to Australia, the First Nations, we don't even practice what they do. We only say acknowledgement of country. Why can't we just invite an elder to come over and do a welcome of country properly? When the borders were open with the bubble, the Kiwis were all hard out doing the pōwhiri. And then you come to Australia, it was like people in onesies and a bubble. It was like, is that how you see our First Nations? That is such a disrespect to our First Nations.
It was unbelievable.
It was. And to me personally, that was very disrespectful to our First Nations people. Right. Why should we should be standing for them? And that's why with me, it's like, if non-Indigenous Samoan people want to take my malu and my pita on, take it with grace. Take it with respect, take it with honor, at least the differences between them and our critics is that, one, our critics don't even have there's nothing, but to me personally, I don't have a problem with it. I absolutely don't have a problem with it until I see somebody disrespecting it. That's when my problem comes. That's when I actually have problems.
Yeah.
That's why I have
How do you? Sorry to
Sorry?
cut you off there. When if someone was to disrespect it, can you give us an example?
I was just about to go into
okay.
that.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on then.
So what I mean by that is we've got a lot of brothers and sisters inside jail, inside prison, committing crimes, right? Inside prison with the bear and the malu. You know what I mean? And to me, that was very disrespectful. That's so what's the difference with our people with the malu and bear committing crime, spending time doing time? What's the differences between them committing crime and say as a non-Samoan person with the malu or the bear representing our culture in a more respectful and proper way? Like, what's the differences between two? Where the anger should be is where non-Indigenous Samoan tattooists giving away our tattoos. I remember there was a photo of a tattooist who did the signs, the malu signs behind his girlfriend's legs, on both legs at the back. And I remember sitting there, and it was in the Gold Coast, and I just went, what the hell? There's another tattooist here in Inala, and she did a Māori tattoo on a Brazilian, and she's Brazilian, and she did a Māori tattoo hand sleeve on another Brazilian because he wanted it. So there was no consultations in anything to do with the Māoris in regards to what each pattern means. So to me personally, that's where the anger should be, and that's where the critics should. That's where we should take the fight, or not the fight, but actually the discussion. It's like, don't judge our non-Indigenous Samoan community for getting the bear or the malu done. Let's look at who's giving the malu and who's getting the bear. And then first and foremost, our tafunga are doing it in a more respectful and honorable way. And the other thing is, they're not doing it for money. If you actually sit down and listen to their stories, the tafunga stories, they're doing it because it's out of love. And one of the tafungas I actually spoke to turned around and said, he looked at me and goes, Ana, it's my family. I've known these people all my years of being here. They've been asking for the bear and the tatau for so long. And I kept saying, no. But the reason why I gave it to them is because it's an extension of my family. They've been there for me when I was broke. They were there for me when I was sick. They fed my children when I had nothing. The only gift I can give to these white people was what they wanted, and that was just the tatau. All they wanted was the tatau. And that's just one tafunga story. Some of them will only give you a really half-ass answer to it, but some of the tafungas I actually spoke to, because I did I did some interviews with them, that was the answer I got. Is because those people have proven themselves and told toward his family. So they told toward, they served him and his family and his children. So once they got the better done, you realize that every time when I go down Sydney now, like when I go down Sydney and I see the Sulapis down in Sydney, you'll see that every single person, like non-Indigenous Samoan people that he's tattooed, will all turn up to any of his events. And one of the events I turned up to, they all turned up and supported him. Yeah, they do. And they turn up in numbers. And then you ask them, I was like, do you understand what's going on? They go, no, but we're here for our dad. That's the answer they give you. And then I think, whatever my dad wants, we'll do it. And I turn around and that's why some of us, we need to calm down on criticizing our non-Indigenous Samoan people. Did you guys know that a prince in England, one of the princes in England, I can't remember which one it is, actually got a bear from Samoa back in the, I think, 1800s or 1900s, early 1900s.
That's
These
cool.
are nonsense. Yeah, so we've been doing it for years. We've been doing it for generations. We've been doing it for so long. Why are we arguing now?
I think that's what people don't know.
Yeah.
This is nothing new.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's actually in writing. Like, there's researchers about it. Go and read a book. Oh my God! No, read a book. No, seriously.
Yeah, let's all read books.
Look at like I said, look at David Tavita Maliko. He's a Efakasa Reverend. Look at Albert Wendt. Read some of Sia Figel's novels. Read the Telesa novels, you know. Read a lot of our novels coming out, written by our own people. Look at Sani Nathaniel's writings, and look at and then look at Sean Mullen. You know, look at those people and see what they've written about the Pea and the Malu. Learn something, and then look at their bibliography as well as their references. Follow that data. Like what Dion always like was one of the advices I got when I first started my PhD. Follow the data, and you will find something new. And trust me, what I'm talking about now is nothing new, but I learned it through not only conversations, interviews, but also like walking in and just reading, following those diaries one after the other and making up my own decisions on it. And it's best if people start doing that. Research us. We need more researchers about, you know what I mean? It's like, we need people like us. Like, we need you out there to start writing stories about us. I don't want like non-Indigenous Samoan people telling our stories.
Right.
Like, what for? Like, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with our voices? Let's use it. You know, so stop criticizing and putting each other down and start stepping up and helping each other up. You know, stand up. And like, if you don't like something, do something about it. You know, I did. I don't like something that I thought I didn't like. But after doing my research and like just going and talking, I realized our non-Indigenous Samoan women is not as, there's not much difference between them and us. We're all one and the same. So so that's my 5 cents. No, that's actually my like 20 minutes of spill. Sorry, guys.
No, that's all right. Absolutely love that. I'll give you guys the final word, but we'll probably close up now. But thank you guys again for your time. Like, this is like so needed for our people, like this type of conversation, because this is something that obviously it's clear from the video being posted that there are a lot of us out there who aren't educated enough in our own culture. And so just me sitting here listening to the both of you speak, it's actually inspired me so much to, you know, to do more. Like, I've made little steps, but I'm like, no, let's make actual steps. Like, let's go, let's freaking do this, man. And I think, like, guys, whoever's watching this, what Scribe did is all good. That's the way he wants to express himself. That's the way he wants to express himself. And let the man be. So I'll give Dion Agapetos. I'll give you guys the last word. Any last words before we shoot off? But thank you guys again for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and I appreciate you guys so much. So I'll give you guys the last word, and then we'll head off.
Oh, I saw it. First of all, thank you so much for creating such an awesome platform. You know, this is the first time I've actually been in one of these casts. So this is like, you know, it's many firsts for me. But for our brothers and sisters out there, if you see something you don't like, step up and make a difference. Step up and make a documentary about it. Step up and write a poem about it. Step up and draw a picture about it. Like, use your creativity, creative knowledge that God bestowed upon you, that's inherited from our ancestors. Use that and turn your anger into something creative. But don't put each other, like, let's stop putting each other down and start pulling each other up. You know, it's all about being there for one another, you know, and embrace our Samoa. If you see something that doesn't fit what you feel is wrong in your opinion, let's talk about it. I'm an open book. Let's have a chat. I'm right here. But, you know, I wish you guys all the best, and thank you so much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Oh, what a awesome. Well, that's hard to follow.
How are you going to follow that, Dion? Can we just end it right there?
Yeah, I'm in it. No.
But yeah, that yeah, basically just the same as Agapetos, you know, the dialogue is alive and open, and you know, just to keep the dialogue going, but then just to do something. Do anything is better than nothing. Whether you go to a Siva class, or whether you go and teach some kids, like anything is better than nothing. You know, we can't just sit there and troll. Then you gotta go and do the work. What's the HRPP saying? tau talanga wenga, yeah, ngā la.
Mm,
So yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been awesome.
no worries. Thank you guys again. And that's us.
Is the
All right.
recording ended?